In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use the Prism Photoshop action. And what this action does, it takes your photo and creates this type of effect using Photoshop shapes. And you can use any shape, and every shape will produce a completely unique result. So, and what we can also do for those who have CS6 and above, we can quickly apply these cool blurring effects, which I'll also show you how to do in this tutorial. Here's a few other quick examples that I've done using this action. Okay, so I'll go ahead and close these, and let's start off with our photo. Okay, so the first thing you want to check off when you open up your photo is if your layer is set as the background. So if you go into your layer panel, it should look like this with the background text and the lock symbol. If it's not like that, you need to go to the layer menu and go new background from layer, and it will set it as a background. Next, just double check in your layer panel, go to the top icon here and go to panel options. Just make sure that add copy to copied layers and groups is selected and click OK. Next, you want to go to the image menu, go to mode, just ensure that you're in RGB color mode and 8 bits of channel selected, and try to avoid using photos less than 1000 pixels high and wide. The results look way better on higher res photos. Mine, this one here is 1600 by 2500 at 300 dpi, so just keep that in mind. So the first thing we need to do is create a new layer, and it needs to be called brush. It must be all lowercase. Okay, so click OK, and with that layer selected, excuse me, we need to get our brush out, so hit B on the keyboard, and you can use any color. And what you want to do is start brushing over where we want to concentrate all the effects around. Okay, so I've just done one a little earlier here, so you can see that I have my brush layer and I've brushed over the area that I want to keep and where I want to concentrate all the effects around. Now, another thing you might want to do when running this action, you don't have to do this, but if you want more room on your canvas, so for example, I want more space to the left and right here, and maybe a little bit of height. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to image canvas size, and I'm just going to change this to pixels. The width, I'm just going to add, say, an extra 500, and the height, just another 200. And you can see now I've just got a bit more space. Alright, so now we need to load up our actions. So go to the window menu, go to actions. The actions panel will pop up here. And go to the top right hand corner icon and go to load actions. And just select the prism.atn file. It appears here. And just twirl that open and you have the prism action here. So there'll be a couple of pop-ups throughout the action, just 2 of them. And we're going to talk through how all that works. So just click play on the action, and you're going to get a message here that says, now create a shape. Remember that the more edges your shape has, the more detailed the outcome will look. After you've created the shape, simply click play on the action to continue, click stop below. So I'll explain what all that means. So once this pops up, we just need to click stop. You'll see that the action has stopped a few steps in, but what we need to do now is create a shape. So if you go into your tool panel to the left here, and you go into your shapes here, you can use any one of these basic shapes, but what you can also do is if you go to custom shape tool, you can head on up the top here and click on this shape, this box here, and you'll see that some basic Photoshop shapes here. If you want to load up the rest of Photoshop's basic shapes, just go to this icon here, go to all, click OK, and so you'll see all Photoshop's basic shapes here. And you know, this action works really well with shapes like triangles or stars, squares, diamonds, but in the readme file that I've included in the download, I've also given you links to thousands of free Photoshop shapes to load up. So for example, I've just put together a set here from the from the list, and you can use any one of these shapes and you're going to get a completely different result every time. But for this example, I'm just going to use, I'll just use a triangle, and what you need to do is just draw out the shape onto your canvas. It can be anywhere, it doesn't matter, it will always center itself around our subject. And another thing to keep in mind is the shape that you create this at. So if I create the shape this small, the overall effect isn't going to grow that large. It might even hide behind our subject because it's that small. And if we go this big, the lines are going to easily fill up our canvas. There's going to be a lot of detail. So you want to find a good size. So just compare it against your subject and get something, you can experiment with all this after you've run the action a few times, try different sizes, but I'll do something like that. And yeah, even if you rotate the shape that much, you're going to get a different design. That much, you're going to get a different outcome. So, but we'll keep this simple. We'll just keep it like this. And when you've done that, don't worry about changing the colors. Just leave that. You can change all the colors after the action's finished. We just click play. And then you'll get the last pop-up. It just says, in the next pop-up window, using a distance amount greater than 240 will increase the overall spread of the design elements. Experiment with using large numbers. 240 is the default amount for this action. Click continue below. So I'll explain what that's talking about. So you just click continue, and you get this motion blur window pop-up. So the one that you want to change here, we don't have to change it at all, is this slider here. So by default it's set to 240, and what this will basically do, it will, the higher you go above 240, it will increase the spread of all the design elements. So if I went all the way up to say 1000, the lines, everything's going to be spread out a lot more. If I went all the way back down to 100, everything's going to be concentrated really closely to this triangle. So 240 is what I built the action on for its default amount, but you can get some really cool results just experimenting with dragging this slider around. So for this, I might just bring it up to somewhere around 650, and all you need to do then is click OK for the action to continue. Now from here, the action will take about 2 minutes to finish, so I'm just going to fast forward the video, and then when it stops, we're going to talk about all the layers and what we can do. So just come back to Photoshop in a couple minutes time and you'll have your result. So here we have our result, and what we're going to do now is just minimize the actions panel. So we'll close that, and jumping into our layer panel here, you see we have a lot of layers, but to quickly minimize all these folders, just with the layer that's selected after the action, just hold down Control Alt on a PC, Command Option on a Mac, and just click on that arrow. And what that'll do is quickly collapse all the folders, so we have a much better workflow, much neater workflow now. Okay, so if you wanted to run the action again, I've kept the brush layer hanging around, so I can just shift select these 3 layers like that, and press play in the action, and yeah, go through the process again. But I'll undo that. And we'll start off by going into the Prism folder. The adjustments folder we'll come back to. It just has a lot of different color options and contrast options. Has a sharpening layer here. So we'll come back to that. So let's go inside the Prism folder here, and we'll just go down the line, and the top layer here is our main color layer. So by default, the action will give you this golden color. But if you just double click on this box here, you can select a new color, just like that. And just keep in mind with this layer here, it does have a mask, and what it does, it has a soft mask. So if I alt click on the mask, I can go inside to have a look at that, and you can see it's the area that we brushed, but I've just blurred it out, so that blue just sort of seeps into the area that we brushed, so it helps the design sort of connect a bit better. But if you hold down Shift and click on that mask, it'll hide it. So if you wanted to have blue overall for the color, just hide that mask. Okay, so the layer below is glow. If you just turn that one on and off, you can see what that's doing. And again, it is masking out the area that we brushed. If I hold down Shift and hide it, you can see that it adds glow on top of that, but I found that's just too bright, so I've masked that away for you. And you can also adjust the opacity at the top here. So if I just click and hold on the word opacity and drag to the left and right, you can increase the glow. So I usually start from 0, drag to the right, and get something that looks good. Just like that. The layer below is cloud texture, so if I just move this around, you'll see what that's doing. Just adds a little bit of texture to help with some atmospheric effects. Okay, so that's that layer. Again, that has a opacity of 60, so you can turn that up or down, whatever you like. Vertical lines, I'll turn that one on and off so you can see what that's doing. Basically, all the hotspots in the design, it will adds vertical sort of light streaks from those points. So again, you can control the opacity of that layer if it's too strong. Okay, so moving down, we have our photo layer. So this is where our main photo is. So if you twirl that folder open, we have 3 layers here. The layer in green is our main photo. Okay, so the 2 layers above, we have motion lines. So if I just move this one, say to the top right here, you can see that adds some cool sort of motion lines effect. And if you hold down Alt and click and drag on that layer, so drag down, you can quickly duplicate it. And if you actually go to, I'll just move this down, if you go to filter blur, motion blur, it already has the same direction set, so all you need to do is play around with the distance and you can increase that blur out. So I'll just do that to the top one, I'll hit Control F to repeat that filter, so you can create some cool effects using that layer alone. Okay, just move that there, I'll delete that. So this layer here, photo sharpening, I've added a bit of sharpening to our photo. If you don't want that, you can just turn it off. Yeah, so here's our main photo. Now what I've done here, I've created a mask. It's a soft mask again, and that is to allow for all the effects to sort of bleed in from the edges, so you can see that the effects don't really show up in these midsection here. It's because it's going to appear much closer to the edge of where we brushed. And what you can also do is if you double click on this mask, okay, you get these 2 controllers here, density and feather. So what I've done, I've cranked up the feathering, so if I bring this all the way back down, you'll see that our edges are much more defined. It's like how we brushed it originally. But what I wanted to do here, if you drag this to the right, you can see how it starts to blend with the design. So if you want, you can just jump into here and drag this handle around, or you could select the mask, hit B on the keyboard to get your brush out, and grab a black brush, white brush, and you can brush into that to bring back your photo. So like his hands here, I can brush white, and then brush black, I can start to hide it again. So there's a few different ways you can sort of blend your photo in with the background there. Okay, so that's the photo layer. Now this layer below, reduce brightness, is quite important, because some shapes, if there's a lot of detail in the shape before you run the action, a lot of edges, there might be areas in the design where it loses a bit of definition, it might be a bit bright. So what you can do is just double click on this layer, and using this this left hand side handle here, you can sort of control the brightness of it, so you can see that there, and you'll notice that when I reduce it, a lot of the lines become a lot more apparent. Okay, so that's that. So secondary color, if I turn off the main color, it has this by default this orange color sitting underneath, and you can see that behind our our subject there. So if I just change this to say a purple, you can see that color there. So if you want to add more purple, what you can do, you go back to your main color and you select the mask, grab a black brush, and if you brush black into that layer, you can reveal the secondary color below, just like that. So you see if I change this back to an orange, see that? So that's one way you could experiment with colors, but soon I'll go into the adjustments folder, and there's a heap of other ways you can play around with the color as well. So going down, we have this folder called 3D shape. I'll just remind you that you can duplicate the layer for more. So by default it's turned off, and what it is, if you just turn it on, it's basically the shape that you start off with, but it's got a bit of 3D depth to it, so you can turn that on and move it around. You could hold down Alt, click and drag again to duplicate it, create a copy. You could flip it horizontally, move that around. You can scale it down, just play around with the shape there. Alright, so going down, there's these two layers here. They're just really soft atmospheric effects. Probably barely see them, so but they're there. Okay, so lines folder, if I turn that one on and off, actually what I might do, just in the adjustments folder, I'll turn off the overall sharpening, and we'll go back down. So what I'll do here, I'll just turn off these 4 folders so we can see a bit clearer what's going on. Okay, so here's our lines folder, and if you go inside, we have a handful of different layers that you can move around wherever you want. And you'll notice that the cool thing about this action is whatever shape you use, it will create a really unique looking form from it. So you can remember that we use a triangle, but this shape here, you can see it's created these extenders with lines to it. So you never really know what you're going to get with this action. It creates some really bizarre shapes, which makes it really fun to use. So yeah, bunch of different ones here. This one here is quite important, large lines down the bottom. That's the main glowing shape that you can see there. So you can move that around. And this one here, you can actually boost the brightness of that. If you turn that on, you'll see it just adds some vertical light coming from it. So that's just one to flick on to see if it really suits your design or not. Going on down glow spots, I'll turn that one on. And inside here we have 3 different layers, so turn those 3 off, you can see it's gone. So if the glow is a bit too bright, turn them all off and just turn them on one by one, like that. And you can leave it like that if it's too bright. But for the sake of this, might just turn that one off for the moment. Shapes, this folder here just has a bunch more design elements that we can move around. So you can see there's a cool shape there you can move around. So you can sort of reposition elements if you want to get creative and mess around with the design a bit. This folder here, main shape build, it's just some really subtle shapes that sit behind our brushed area. So it hasn't really got that much an effect, that folder, so you won't need to mess around with that much. Extra background texture. This one, I'll move this layer around so you can see what that's doing. So you can see up the top here, it just adds just some subtle effects that sit in the background. The opacity of this layer is really low, 20%. If I turn this all the way up, you can see, now moving around, you can see more of what that layer is. So you can see some pretty cool effects, but that's by default pretty low. Now this one here, you'll probably want to mess around with a bit. Large background shapes. So if you move this one around, and you can move it around for a while, you can see that yeah, some really cool sort of blurred out shapes. You can just move around and reposition, get something that looks cool. Leave that there. Stars, pretty self-explanatory. They sit in the background there. If you don't want to have that, just turn that one off. And we have our background color. You can turn that off, and you can see where we're extending the canvas. But if you wanted the design elements to fall down onto the original photo with no background or anything, just turn off the background color, and you can see that, just ignore the white part, but you can see that was our original photo, so that looks pretty cool in itself. And if you wanted to use this action and not have our photo, you could just turn off the photo folder, and what you need to do then is just hold down shift on the layers that have a mask, so we can see our subject, so like that one, and that's probably about it. So then you can turn off this if you just wanted the one color. So now we're going to export that out as our background. Okay, so I'll just turn those back on. I'll turn this on. Okay, so now when I've messed around with those layers, I like to go into our adjustments folder at the top. Now with the overall sharpening, if you're moving elements around, it's probably best to turn that off. So if I move this layer, say to the top right, you can see that it leaves a bit of residue. It overlays over the the default result of our action. So if you're moving parts around, you might get some lines that still sit there. But if not, if you're able to design straight off the bat, then keep that one on. Okay, so this layer here, if you wanted to control the color completely yourself in a much easier way, all you need to do is brush color on this layer, like how I've named it. So if I hit B on the keyboard, get my brush out again, and I select a color, all I need to do is just brush on that layer to color it. You can select different colors here, like that. And if you wanted to, if the colors are too intense, you can just simply drag your opacity down that layer and bring it up a little bit, so you can sort of blend those colors in with the ones that we've got, so you can get some cool results that way. But we'll turn this one off for the moment. This layer here, overall color tint, if you double click on this one, you can apply just an overall color of your choice. So you can see the color here is orange. You can use this drop down menu for some other colors. If you drag this handle to the right, you can sort of flood your image with that color. So if you wanted a bit of orange overall, you just bring that slider up. Okay, so that's that one. Just by default, I set up 2 contrast layers, and what I like to do is when I jump into this adjustments folder, just flick them on and off. You see how it affects the design. So if you don't want that contrast, leave it off. This one here, you can adjust contrast to, you can adjust the opacity. By default it's low, so if you drag that to the right and to the left, 0 to 100, you can use an amount that you want. Adjust saturation, if you double click on this one, by default I've just increased the overall saturation of our design, but you can bring that down if it's too intense to 0 if you want black and white, or you could turn this up to give it a lot more saturation. Okay, now I've also set up 17 different additional sort of color options that help sort of bind all our design elements together. So what you can do here is you can see there it's applied. It's like a soft blue overall fill. It's increased the lightness of our shadows. So you can go down the line and flick these on and see how they affect the design. And what I like to do here is combine a few, and I don't always like to use them at 100%. So I'll use C5 and I'll drag the opacity down to 0, and I'll just bring it up a little bit, so it just gives it a little bit of that layer effect. And I'll keep going down, and I think, do I want a bit of that effect, that one? So I'll keep going here. So maybe I want to use this one where it fills the highlights in a little bit of yellow, but I won't use it at 100. Bring it back to 0 and just drag it up a little bit, something like that. Okay, so there's all those to go through as well. So that's essentially it. That's how you use this action. It's fairly easy to use, and for those who have CS6 and above, I'll show you a quick way to add some cool blurring effects to this now. So what we'll do, we'll just flatten all these layers down to one layer. So we'll go to Layer, Flatten Image. We'll discard the hidden layers, Okay, so now we have our design on one layer, and what I'll do, I'll hit Control J just to duplicate it, so we have a copy. And what we'll do, we'll go to Filter, Blur, and we use Iris Blur. So click on that one. And so the way this works, if you grab this midpoint here, you can move that around, right? And everything outside of this sphere will be blurred. And what you can do, you can just click on this sphere and adjust the size, the positioning, but just like that. And these inner circles here, these 4 circles, basically where you want the blur. It's like feathering, where you want the blur to start. So you can turn it right up, put it right to the edge, so the blur will only begin, about here. Or you could, give it a much softer look. Okay, and if you look to the right here, you've got some settings. So you've got the iris blur here. You can turn that amount up, so you can see it at work there. So I'm just going to push this up a bit. I might do that. Yeah, so just play around with that blur, and what you can also do is go to this setting here, and you can just drag that to the right to boost the light on some of your highlights. You can grab this light range slider here, if you want to add more, like that, but we'll turn that down a bit. It's pretty intense for this example. Okay, so when you're done with that, you can just click OK. And there you have it. So you can see our focal area, you can see the blurred areas really connect really well with our subject here. There's no sort of harsh edges. It flows really well. And another blurring technique that I like to use is the tilt shift. So you can go again, filter, blur, tilt shift, and you can rotate this one around. So this one here works in a similar way. So everything within these 2 solid bars will be in focus. Everything outside of it will be out of focus. So play around with these handles here, and again use this setting just like that, so you can see that our focal point is more vertical now. Okay, so I'll leave that one off for this one. Okay, so you can see vertically now our area in the middle here is in focus. So play around with those, you can get some really cool results with that blurring technique as well. Alright, so that's it. If you plan on downloading the action, have fun using it, and if you have any questions, just email me. Thanks.